Hey, Teen Summers, thank you for joining us again today. We're very excited to have our guest today, Michael Jacobus, because as you know, one of our main principles that we talk about is intermittent tech fasting. And Michael has taken this important cause to a whole nother level. Michael, thank you for being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And now, Michael, you are the founder and are you the director as well of the Reset Summer Camp?
I am.
Now tell us a little bit about Reset Summer Camp.
Well, Reset Summer Camp started in 2018 when every kid in the country seemed to be addicted to Fortnite, and the World Health Organization declared gaming disorder as a diagnosable thing.
I had no idea.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really gotten bad. I myself am a 35-year summer camp director. I've been directing summer camp since I was an old teenager. And I decided to create Reset because of the technology addiction explosion in today's youth. I had a challenge with my own son when he was a teenager being addicted to a video game. So I know the struggles that parents have. There was no such program to send him to. So I started Reset, which is kind of a cross between a therapeutic residential program and a traditional summer camp. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to ask because I'm very curious on this. We love experiential education and outdoor education. Our kids have gone to forest school and other things outside the classroom. Is kind of the goal of you're not only trying to counsel through the addictive behavior, but also replace it with something fun and getting outdoors so it's not even as needed? Is that kind of the theme?
Yes and no. I say it that way because our primary goal is a digital detox and life skills program for teenagers. So, contrary to a traditional summer camp that I'm used to running, nobody is excited to come to my program. The kids are not overjoyed. Most of them feel they're being punished or sent there rather than they get to go there, even though we do fun summer camp stuff. We do a lot of outdoor activities. We do a lot of traditional summer camp stuff. We expose them to art and drama and music and self-defense and all kinds of other things that they could become involved in. But the primary goal of the program is to get them away from their devices. The camp is a month long. We're hosted on university campuses, so they sleep in dorm rooms. They have a roommate. They get a taste for what college life might be like or what living on their own after graduation might be like. We switch their roommate assignments every week because it's uncomfortable, because life is uncomfortable and you need to get used to that. We have 2 therapists that are on staff 24/7, licensed therapists that work with these kids. We have a 3-to-1 camper to staff ratio, so it's a really small, intentional program. And then we close the program with a family workshop weekend. We have at least one parent show up on Friday and stay till Sunday, participate in family therapy, and get kind of a recap of everything we've done and all the tools necessary to move forward after the kid comes home.
Wow.
Now, Michael, how does somebody know if their child needs to come see you? Because I know, like in our own home, we've never allowed, our oldest are 18 and 20 now. So one of them at some point, maybe he was 17, bought his own, I think it's an Xbox, and and even at 17, I'm like, you can only play it for 1 hour and after your younger siblings are in bed. Like we have real strict parameters. But what would happen is when he was 10, 12, he would go down to the neighbor's house who was a little bit older. He had the gaming system, and then he would like play his little wits out. Well, we didn't realize this at first because they had a trampoline and a basketball hoop. We thought they were doing lots of other things, but he would come home and he would be like a total lunatic and a grump the rest of the day and in a terrible mood. And we were like, finally, I think maybe it was even you that came onto it and you were like, I think he's playing video games down there. And I'm like, for like the whole 4 hours? Yeah, probably. So then it became an awareness to us that, out of all of our children, he's the one that you remove that stimulation. He also has ADD and dyslexia. It's like superhuman because of those things, a really incredible brain. However, the stimulation was so important to whatever was going on in his brain that it was like a
It'd make him
eruption on the other side.
very aggro. He'd get super aggro and be like, what's going on here?
So I just wonder, I know for us, it was like, I could control it because it was at the neighbor's house and I didn't let it, but how do you know? And then how do you get to the point where you bring a child to come see you?
Well, that's a great question. And I get that question all the time. I have three of my own children and two stepchildren, and they all play video games, but only one became addicted. So there is no way to really tell what the brain chemistry of a child will be that causes the addiction. Whereas another kid, I have other kids that play video games, and when you tell them it's dinner time, they shut the game off, they come to dinner, they converse, they have no problem at all. But the one who was addicted, he would get just like your son. He would be angry and moody and grumpy, and his sleep patterns were messed up. And it's really because the cortisol and the dopamine that's flooding their brains when they're playing video games, or to a lesser extent, social media. Cortisol and dopamine is something we talk about at camp in terms of these are hormones that are supposed to hit your brains at very specific times. The cortisol is the fight or flight hormone, and that you have to be in serious danger to have cortisol levels rise to have that fight or flight instinct. And then the dopamine is the pleasure hormone, and you have to be having a really great meal or having sex or something that causes dopamine to stimulate your brain. Well, video games create cortisol and dopamine hundreds of times a minute. So
Wow.
kids' brains are just being flooded with these hormones that are not naturally occurring in these quantities. So yeah, they become very angry and very agitated. The thing that I tell most parents is, when they ask me, how do we know? It's funny because anytime somebody asks me that, they already know. They already know that there's a problem by the time they're talking to me and asking me that question. But we have a document that we can share a link in your podcast for as the top 8 signs that your teen may be at risk. And, I'll just go through them really quick. The first is neglecting their own personal needs. If they're not sleeping, they're not eating, they just will not come out of their room. They cannot leave their video game or their device, and to the point that they're neglecting their own personal needs. If they're preoccupied with technology, even if they're away from it, but they're thinking about it, or they can't wait to get back to it, be it social media or gaming or streaming or whatever, if they're constantly preoccupied with your conversation because they just want it to be over and they want to get back. Binging is another one. They're up till 2, 3, 4 in the morning. We get a lot of campers that, we tell them, if you get nothing out of this program at all except one thing, it needs to be that you need to get a good night's sleep. And so many kids are up till 2 and 3 in the morning on their video games, and they're eating Doritos and drinking Gatorade. They're the two things that we really concentrate on camp is a good sleep schedule and a good healthy eating pattern. And we do that for a month, so by the time the kids are ready to go home, that's their new normal.
That's great. And what's the age range at your camp?
Well, we typically take teenagers, so we say 12 to 19. Typically, the youngest kid that comes to our camp is about 14, and we have had a kid as old as 21. I prefer the teenagers. I like to get them when they're still quote unquote minors, and we still have a chance to kind of mold them and push them in the right direction. Because we're on a college campus and we're kind of giving them a taste of what college life or living on your own life might be like. 12-year-olds are a little too young to kind of grasp that. Yeah. And, I get a lot of calls for, can you take my 26-year-old, my 28-year-old? Can you take my husband? Yeah, I get those all the time. And we just are not really an adult program.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
And now you referenced gaming and social media. What do you think about porn as well?
Well, we have 3 kinds of kids that come to our program. We have gamers, social media. Gamers are usually boys. Social media kids are usually the girls who, their entire personal self-worth is dependent on how many likes they get and what their friends post and who's commenting and who's not commenting. I'll ask the kids, how many of you have ever put a photo online and then taken it down within an hour because it didn't get enough likes? And every girl raises their hand, and half the boys usually, which I find hysterical on one point, because I post a photo because I like it. I don't care if anybody else likes it, but I'm not a teenager. But then the third category we get is streamers. And we call them streamers because they're not really gamers, and they're not really lucked into social media, but they're constantly getting video streaming content. That can be Netflix, porn, YouTube, TikTok, although that's sort of a social media platform, but they're just consuming constant media without really being a social media person or a gamer.
Always, right? It's just an always, yeah. And we've
So it's
seen
like
that.
gluttonous, like you're eating too much every time. You're like, oh, I need a snack of YouTube, or oh, I need a snack of.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that, because our program is most closely related to an eating disorder. Because like when we interview therapists, if they have, they say they're addiction counselors. Well, I'll have to say, well, what kind of addiction? Because if they're used to working with alcohol and drug addiction, that's different. Because alcohol and drug addiction, you want to not do that anymore, and you want to get a sponsor, and you want to do a 12-step program. You want to do all these things to get you off alcohol and drugs. With technology, we live in a technology world. You can't really be completely off the grid unless you're going to go live in a forest and grow your own food and be that way. So same thing with an eating disorder. You have to eat. You just don't need to eat 10,000 calories a meal. So trying to give these kids a healthy balance of technology with their lives, in combination with sleep, family time, schoolwork, outdoor activities, so it's not the primary focus of their lives.
Yeah. And you do detox, and do you have to detox first before you do self-regulation? Because when Jamie and I were reading up on it, we're like, wow, self-regulation, how powerful is that? Like, I'd love to talk about self-regulation, but also, do you need to detox them first before you can even look at self-regulation?
Yeah, one of the reasons our camp is 4 weeks is that's one of our PhDs referred to it as the sweet spot, meaning that it took 4 weeks to get kids completely detoxed, on a good sleep pattern, on a good eating schedule, and willing and able to have conversations about other things in their lives, about self-regulation, about their relationship with their parents. One of the reasons we have 2 therapists on staff is we do group therapy 3 mornings a week, but then we do individual therapy very organically. It happens every day, but not with every kid every day. And I'm not in those sessions, so I know we've had a lot of kids divulge abuse at home, or different things that have caused them to be at the station they're at. But one of the things we teach when we talk about self-regulation is we talk to them about what big tech wants from them. And it's not their enjoyment and their fun and their sharing with friends. It's their time and their money.
Right.
And we had one kid this last summer, actually, who had he was 15 and had a felony conviction for stealing gaming gift cards from a local store. But he stole like $2,500 worth of them, so it made it a felony. And then we've had other kids who have we had one kid that had run up $13,000. First on the debit card his parents gave him, then his mother's credit card, then his grandmother's credit card, and lastly his best friend's mother's credit card. Wow. Because kids today just don't really have a concept of money. Everything is automated, virtual. They don't actually ever touch cash. So transferring funds back and forth really means nothing to them.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, similar to those lines, do you see, with these gaming, tech addicts, I guess, a bit of a disconnection from like societal norms? So things like you're on a video game and people are just constantly dying, and then they get to come back to life and it's no big deal. Or you steal a car and you run a woman over, you slap her with the back of your hand, no big deal. You just keep going. Are you seeing a lot of like lack of empathy, lack of reality? What do you think about maybe even some of the horrible things that are happening in our country? Like, is it all connected?
Absolutely. Now, the gaming companies will obviously say otherwise, that, everything is optional, and, they have age restrictions on their games and it's all on the parents' fault. But these games are designed to be addictive. When I was a kid, when I was a young kid, I had to go to an arcade with quarters to play a video game or a pinball machine. But then when video games came home, they had a screen that said game over. You know, you actually finished the game. You rescued the princess, you beat the monster, you did whatever, and it said game over. Today, with very few exceptions, games don't end. There's always a new quest. There's always a new group. There's always a new clan to join. There's always something new to do and something new to buy. And the gaming companies have caught on to this and specifically design, and social media too, to keep you scrolling, keep you moving, keep you on your device. There's a really popular video game right now called Grand Theft Auto 5. I think it's number 5. Number 6 is coming out soon. But Grand Theft Auto is the one where you can beat up prostitutes and run over police. And now in that game, you can actually visit a strip club, which, to me is insane.
Right. And that's a 1-year-old or a 12-year-old playing that.
Yeah. Now the gaming companies will said, well, this is a mature audience only game. You have to be 18, but nobody's gonna, and the thing is that I tell parents every time I talk to a group of parents, I'll say, what is the one thing that we love as parents more than anything at home? And then I'll advance the screen on my presentation and I have the word quiet. Because we love it when it's quiet, and we tell ourselves that, oh, they're in their room doing their homework or they're studying, that because it's quiet, it's great. But they're not. They have their headphones on, they have their game going, they have their chat boxes open, they're making purchases you're unaware of, they're playing games you're unaware of, and you don't figure it out until they're failing their school grades.
Wow.
Well, and there's a heaviness to that is a little bit in all of our faces, but an accountability piece that's important. It makes us really sad when we go out to dinner and we see 3, 4, 5, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds, all of them just have a pad. They're just handed a pad because the parents don't want to deal with it. And on a rare occasion, if we're going out to dinner late, we might let our 6-year-old play some sort of puzzle game or something, but very rare. But from what we've seen from some people, literally their kids have no restrictions. The parents want quiet, and they hand them a phone or an iPad with no restriction, none. They have as much time as they want on it. And they're like, well, they're fine. They're not getting in trouble. They're on this. And so we absolutely have to make our teens take responsibility. But we've had some strong conversations with some parents we've worked with and said, who started this? Right. Did you choose the easy path and now you're trying to back off a hard path you've created? And how do you address that? Because I'm sure you've had to have some difficult conversations around this.
I've had that conversation 100 times, if I've had it once. And what I've noticed that seems to hit home the best is I will ask parents and teens the same question separately, obviously. I will ask the kids at camp, raise your hand if you still want to be living with your parents when you're 25. And nobody raises their hand. When I talk to a group of parents, I'll say, raise your hand if you still want your kid living with you when they're 25. And nobody raises their hand. And I'm like, there you go. If you don't want that, you need to address this right now. And I get a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment. And how did we let it get so, a lot of parents are really mired in this guilt. And I'll say, okay, yes, it's your fault because you're the parent, they're the kid, whatever. That was yesterday. Starting today, we're going to get good sleep. We're going to change the nutritional patterns, and we're going to regulate the online activities. Because if you don't, that kid is going to still be with you when they're 25, when they're 30, when they're 40, and, buckle up.
What are some tips you have for that regulation? Like, how can we help teach the children self-regulation, ourselves, even, through examples? Like, what's a really good balance of keeping a good eye on them, teaching them, guiding them? What do you
Well,
suggest?
It's funny. I have a friend that uses the term digital immigrant and digital native. I don't know if you've heard those terms before, but parents of our generation are considered the digital immigrants because we didn't grow up with iPhones and Google, and we played outside and rode our bikes and things like that. And kids today are digital natives because they've grown up with iPhones and having the world's information at their fingertips, things like that. And then I had another friend say, they're not digital natives, they're digital orphans. And that really struck a chord with me because the digital orphan has nobody to guide them. There is no current parent who's so up on Snapchat that they can successfully guide their child on how to use Snapchat. So I like Digital Orphan a whole lot better. And so when I talk to parents, I'll say communication is the absolute best thing, and communication without judgment. And that's the number 2 thing. The number 1 thing is sleep. So we actually have created an online course, and I'll share that link with you for parents who need help right now, and it's not summer because they can't send their kid to camp until summertime. But we'll talk about the importance of sleep, and we'll say to have a family meeting, and I suggest on a Wednesday, and maybe include an apology in that conversation, a non-judgmental conversation where you apologize to your kid and you say, I really didn't understand how bad this is. So we're going to have a new rule. We're going to get 8 hours of sleep a night, and start it on Sunday night. Don't start it on Wednesday when you're having the conversation. Give them a couple days to get used to it. But starting on Sunday night, say 9 p.m., we're going to collect all the devices. We're going to take the power cords to the Wi-Fi and the power cords to the computers. We're going to completely unplug everything. You can charge all that stuff in the master bedroom. Some parents I work with charge it in the closet of the master bedroom with a padlock on the door so kids can't get their devices back. It gets that bad.
Wow.
And then from 9 to 10, we're letting the melatonin do its work. We're getting sleepy. Maybe we're reading a book. Maybe we're having a family conversation. We're brushing our teeth. We're taking a shower. We're getting ready for bed. And by 10 p.m., it's lights out. Now, a lot of parents think that's way too early, but 10 p.m. lights out and 6 a.m. waking, that's 8 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And if they do get into, a routine, that's what we do at camp. And the kids fight it like crazy. Nobody's sleepy at 10 p.m. Nobody wants to get up at 6:30 in the morning. But that's only the first week. By the second week, they're getting used to it. By the third week, it's a routine.
Yeah.
So there will be tantrums. There will be blowback. But parents have to stay firm in a non-blaming, non-judgmental way and just say, this is going to be our new normal. It's going to be hard on everybody. The parents also need to set the example. They need to participate in this activity. It's hard to tell your kid to not be on their phone at the dinner table when you're on yours. So things like that.
Exactly. And Michael, when you're talking to a child, because I always like to say, whatever I'm dealing with, hey, right now, like we work with a lot of parents, you might be feeling guilty, depressed, disconnected, a stranger at home because you're working too much. We need to get some rhythms into your life. And once you do, you're going to feel more trust, more respect, more connected at home, better conversations. Like what do you share with teens when saying, look, you're probably experiencing these negative traits right now, but once we get you through this, this is how you're going to feel, or this is what I'm going to see. You're probably going to see side. Like, so on the other side, do you have any, like, you're probably in, pardon my friend, in the shits right now, feeling this, or behaving like this, but once you're on this side, here's what I've seen happen. Do you have any main points that could give some justified hope?
We do share those that kind of conversation with the kids. Obviously, they don't believe us. They roll their eyes. They think, their world has come to an end because they've been punished and sent to camp. The first thing I'll tell all the kids when they arrive is this is not punishment camp. This is learn how to get what you want in life camp. And 20 hours a day on a device isn't going to get you there. We have some kids who think they're going to make a living being professional gamers, and we share the statistics with them that it's actually easier to make a living as a professional football player than it is to be a professional gamer. Just from a numbers standpoint, every kid in the country wants to be a professional gamer. There's not that many spots available to make a living being a gamer. But we will tell them that, they're going to be exposed to new things and they're going to get better sleep. And, the first day of camp, they're all rolling their eyes and not believing it. But what's funny is it's almost tribal when camp starts, because all of them don't believe it. All of them feel punished. So it's kind of creates an us versus them situation, which is a perfect therapeutic model because they team up with each other. Even though their social skills are horrible, they all share horrible social skills. So they all end up teaming up to agree with each other on how much this sucks and how much their parents punish them to send them here and how much they don't want to be here and how much they're going to trick us into sending them home tomorrow and things like that. So it actually works out really well.
I love that.
Now, you mentioned way at the beginning of this conversation that gaming addiction it's been listed as like an actual health concern. Is that
with the World Health Organization?
Yeah, the World Health Organization declared gaming disorder to be a diagnosable thing. Now, they don't address social media and they don't address streaming. And the best they do is say, it warrants further study, that kind of thing. There is no insurance company that currently covers.
Is there like, okay, so we've identified it. Do we do anything about it? Like, is there any next step that they line out?
Well, what we provide to the campers or the parents who request it is we will give statements of time spent in group therapies, time spent in individual therapy, so they can submit for reimbursement if their health coverage covers mental health treatments, because we do have licensed therapists there. But we can't list gaming disorder, and as a blanket or umbrella thing for the entire program, because nobody accepts it yet.
Wow, that's a shame. I even, we talked a while back when I was noticing how addictive electronics were getting, and that we're all like shaped like this now, I'm like, wow, I want to open like physical rehabs where we work on doing this instead of doing this.
Oh yeah, most of our kids have the iPhone hunch.
Yeah. And so do you have like physical therapists, because their hands are probably all developed. They probably have super strong these things. And
well, we do have a yoga course that the kids participate in. It's not specifically targeting, straightening out your neck or working out your hands, but it's more of a mindfulness, centered kind of activity.
Yeah,
that's great.
So Michael, very, very important subject, very important work you're doing. We cheer you wholeheartedly. And it's something that, honestly, one of the principles that we put together, being intermittent tech fasting, we do what we need. I needed it because when I get stressed at work, I'm doing this thing, and it's almost that dopamine hit. As you said, it happens so
You
fast.
feel crappy about yourself. You're like, oh, somebody pay attention to me. Somebody acknowledge.
You're feeling worse. And so I think we came out of a function where I wanted to get better at it. And then I could I'd have the right to pass it to my children. And I think obviously a starting point for families is to probably look at yourself as parents. Are you setting the stage? But what else? Because obviously I encourage everyone who needs this to go to your camp, but we're at the holidays right now, so 6 months away from summer camp. Like, what can families do now? I imagine maybe self-reflect on the parent first, but are there any key challenges that you tell families to do to start to cure this? Is there any advice you can give them?
Well, one thing that we did do, and it's just like 2 weeks ago, is we created the online course. So they can go to our website and sign up for the online course. If they choose to send their kid to camp, we will deduct the entire cost of the online course from their camp tuition. Great. So that was primarily done because I get calls in October and November, what can we do? And I'm like, well, you can send your kid to camp next summer. So hang on till then, good luck. So we created the online course. But aside from that, I'll say, sleep is the number one thing. Getting technology out of the bedroom is the number two thing. So I'll have parents, remove the gaming console to the dining room table or the kitchen table or some public family place, not in the kid's bedroom. I will replace iPhones with alarm clocks. Walmart has $5 alarm clocks. And so many people use their iPhones as their alarm clocks, or they play music to go to sleep to. I'm like, skip all that. Get a $5 alarm clock, stick it on the desk or on the dresser, not next to the bed. So you actually have to get up to go turn it off. And now you're up, so you might as well make your bed and start your day. And then honest communication. I'll tell parents, if your kid is really into Call of Duty, play it with them. Create a character and team up and play around. You might think it's the stupidest thing in the world, but it helps connect you to your kid and find out what it is that's driving them so much. I'm not saying play it and binge it and go till 2 a.m, but do that. Same thing with your daughters. If they're on social media, have her show you what she's doing on social media. She'll be very reluctant at first, but if you come at it with a non-judgmental way, I just want to see what you're posting. I just want to see what you're commenting. I want to see what other people are commenting. And then you might be horrified, but don't act horrified, and then leave the room and check in with her again tomorrow. Because unless you create that open communication, they're just going to hide from You know, and I'll tell parents, if you ask your kid to see their Instagram and they have to log on, it's not their Instagram. There are actually apps now that look like calculators that will mask your Instagram login. So if a parent looks at their phone, they'll swipe right past it because they think that's the calculator. But it's actually a way to get into their social media. So they'll have ghost accounts that you log into, and it's full of rainbows and puppies and things that a 4-year-old would be interested in. So the parent's not worried, but it's not really their social media. It's the other one. So it's just about open communication. And I tell most parents, you know, chances are you paid for that device, the computer, the phone. Chances are you pay the subscription. Chances are you're paying for the downloads. You own the device. You have every right to know what's on it. You have every right to know what the password is. Absolutely. But you can't do it in an authoritarian way because that'll just make the kid run and hide. You have to do it in a sharing, open communication, non-judgmental way.
Do you have an opinion on, and we won't keep you much longer, but do you have an opinion on like an age, the most appropriate age to begin allowing, you know, so the brain, honestly, like the males' brains aren't fully developed until like 25 or 26. So
we're slow as males.
Honestly, we should be like, no gaming, no phones, no social media until you're 26. That's not realistic, obviously. But do you kind of have a standard scale of this is a little more appropriate at this time, or we see less risk at a certain age?
Well, I do and I don't, because, you know, I agree. The human brain doesn't stop developing till you're 25. So we shouldn't be doing a lot of things with our kids until they're 25. But that's also not reality. And I hear a lot from parents that, you know, every kid in school has a phone except my kid. And I hear it all the time. And I'm like, yeah, so. But being in reality world, I get a lot of similar questions. One is the one that you just asked. And I will say 16. Which most parents are like, oh my God, that's so old. I'm like, it's not really. You know, if your kid needs digital distractions before that age, then there's a parenting problem. And I'm just like you, when I see kids in restaurants with rubber covered iPads, I always look and see future camper. You know, I was with my wife at dinner the other night, and there was a family of 4 next to us, and 3 out of 4 of them were on their devices, the mom and the 2 kids. And I'm like, future campers, because the parents aren't realizing what they're creating. The other question,
but they're not. They're creating one.
Yeah, and that's what they don't realize because it's quiet. The other questions I get are, you know, how many hours a day is enough?
Good question.
You know, and I'm like, that's really tough to answer. And I'll give my example of my kid. You know, my kid, 1 hour was too much because he was addicted and the cortisol would hit. And, you know, and then I have other kids that weren't addicted and they could go 6 hours and not give a damn. Wow, so it's really kid specific. And then the last question I get is, you know, at what age should we let them have Instagram? And my stock kind of smart aleck answer is, at what age is it okay for them to view porn? Because you're opening the door to social media. And unless you're with them 24/7, which no parent can be, you don't know what they're going to be exposed to. But I can tell you they'll be exposed to porn. They'll be exposed to possible predators. They'll be exposed to current terrorism videos. I mean, they're at what age is that okay?
Great point.
Very true. Yeah, we had a big learning lesson at one point when we found out that you can find porn on Instagram. We were like, oh.
We had no idea. I guess I'm proud and ashamed of how clueless we were on what's available on these things. But we had to find out, you know, through mistakes of one of our kids, and we're like, wait, what? So yeah,
that's why I call them digital orphans, because they truly don't have an adult guide into this new technology world.
Now, Michael, tell us where our listeners can learn more about you. Thank you so much for your time today, but I want to make sure everyone can reach you.
Our website is resetsummercamp.com, spelled just like it sounds. You know, we called it reset because a lot of parents use that phrase. You know, I just need a reset for my kid. Well, okay, send them to Reset Summer Camp. And the link right at the top, it takes you to the online course. And then we'll share some links with you that you can share with your listeners after this.
Right. And we'll make sure we get that home study course in the show notes, because that could be something very important for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, we appreciate it, Michael, and keep up the good work, please.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.